Once more for the State Library Archives in Frankfort, Kentucky, for the Pogue Library at Murray State University for Oral History, and on a grant from WCBL Radio in Benton by Shelby McCallum, we're producing one tape for the Marshall County Library Systems at Benton, Hardin, and Calvert City. We're in the home today of Mrs. Genella Lawrence and our guest, whom we'll be interviewing for the next 30 minutes or so. And we'll start off, and if she doesn't slap me, why, I'll ask her how old she is.
I'm 80. Am I 81 or 2?
86 years old, all right. That's very good, Miss Genella. I've known you a good long while. Were you born in Kentucky?
Yes, I was.
You were Genella Dunn, I believe.
That's right.
And, of course, I've known you a good long while.
Then I was Genella Paget.
Paget, married Clarence Paget, one of my father's very close friends.
Correct.
So you were born was it Callaway County?
Yes.
Now, the first time I remember you, though, you were living out on what I call the Wadesboro Road.
That's right.
And you and your husband had 4 children.
That's right.
Let's see, that's Tom Stokes and John Clarence were the boys. And you had Mildred and Margaret with the twin girls.
That's right.
Well, I'll help you along that much. Now, can you tell us who your parents were?
John Dunn and Sally.
John, Dunn, and Sally. Now, we always try to put all we can on here for the benefit of genealogists. You know, they're running wild these days, and they like to get tapes and find out who was the father and the mother of so-and-so. Do you happen to remember your grandparents on either side?
Yes, I do, in a way.
All right. What was your grandfather's name on your father's side?
John Craig Dunn.
John Craig Dunn. That's very good. Do you remember his wife?
John Craig's wife?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that I do.
All right. Well, that's fine. What about your grandfather on your mother's side? Do you remember his name?
I can't think of it now.
Can't think of it at the moment. Well, that's all right. The Dunns, do you know where they came from here? Do you know enough about the background to know if they came from Virginia or North Carolina or South Carolina or so on?
I think Father must have told me all this, but my mind is just not what it used to be, and so I don't know. John could tell you more about that than I can.
Do you remember where you first went to school, Miss Genella? Was it a one-room country school, maybe?
I think so.
Was it near Cole's campground in that area, or?
No, I don't know that it was.
Do you remember any of the teachers that you had when you were growing up?
White.
All right.
John White was one of them for quite a while.
John White. I believe I remember that man for a short time.
He was a Church of Christ minister also.
Yes, well, that's the same person then. I've seen that individual. And you after growing up, you became a teacher yourself, did you not?
I did.
Where did you first teach?
Ray, I know, but I can't think.
Mm-hmm. Well, I believe you came to Hardin and taught. Do you have any idea when that was or what you taught?
He's in the grades. Yes, I taught at Hardin.
Mm-hmm.
And you see, I know who was the principal there then, the superintendent,
Mm-hmm.
but I can't think. Honey, my mind just not like it used to be. I just about lost it.
Wouldn't have happened to have been, say, Mr. Junius Lewis, maybe.
Oh, yes, Junius Lewis. And he lived right across the road from me, where I lived up by Wadesboro.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Mr. Lewis lived right across the road from us.
I know a lot of people still speak very favorably of him as.
Oh, yes, he was well thought of, highly,
Mhm.
highly praised.
Do you remember anything about what you made? What your salary was when you were teaching back in those days?
It was rather small to start with, I know. Then it got a little larger as time went on.
Mm-hmm.
No, I don't know just how.
Someone told me that they started teaching for $40 a month.
That sounds like mine. That sounds pretty much like mine.
But of course, $40 would go a lot farther than it would today. Obviously, it bought much more than.
Yes, if you was able to do anything yourself, but if you had to buy everything you used in place of getting it done yourself,
Mm-hmm.
it didn't go too far then.
No, but if you lived on a farm and you didn't have any rent to pay and you could have a garden and milk a cow and have some hens and eggs, why.
That was true of us, yes, that was true of us for quite a while.
Uh-huh, yeah. Well, tell us what your favorite subject was in school.
Honey, I just don't have the mind that I used to have, and
Uh-huh. Did you like spelling bees, maybe?
ooh, yes, I was considered the speller.
Yeah, that's good. I thought maybe you were a great speller. Yeah.
Yes, I was. I never had any trouble with my spelling.
Very fine. I remember you, of course, when you were much younger. You know, I'm 61 years old. It's a little hard for me to believe that, but it's true. So,
Well, I've known you then for 61 years.
yes, and I can certainly remember you for the past 50 years, and even a little more than that. And I can recall that you were a good speller. And of course, I used to play with Tom and John and so on.
Well, spelling was one thing that I did do well in, I know.
All right, do you remember anything about the games you played when you were a child?
Ooh.
What?
No, honey, I don't.
Well, let's see. Did you ever play hopscotch?
Yes, played everything that was played during that time.
Andy over?
Yeah.
You might have even gotten in the ring with the boys and played marbles.
I did.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And did you ever play Wolf Over the River?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, well, good.
I played all those games, but I'd forgotten what the names of them were.
Yeah. All right, now your first husband was Clarence Paget. Do you remember how you met him?
Correct about his name, all right.
Did you meet him when you started teaching at Hardin, or?
I had met him before that, I think.
Mm-hmm. All right, can you think of any funny things that happened to you when you were growing up? Maybe at school or at church, or did you ever go to sleep at church and fall out on the floor?
Not that I recall. I don't think I ever did that. I remember your mother and daddy, though, well.
Yes, sir.
Very well.
Well, of course, they thought a great deal of you, and as I said, my dad used to say that his closest friend when he was a boy growing up was Clarence Paget,
I don't doubt that.
and they were pretty close. All right, if you lived on a farm, do you remember what you grew on the farm?
We grew everything that was supposed to be grown,
Mm-hmm.
and had cattle and hogs and so forth and so on.
Okay. Hog killing was a fun time in the winter, wasn't it?
And it was a good time when it come to eating all the sausage, rib,
Backbone.
backbone, and all the good things.
Yeah, it really was. I can recall having so much fun. Of course, it wasn't so funny turning the sausage mill or stirring the when they were cooking out the lard.
Yeah.
You know, you had to stir that stuff.
Oh, yeah.
But I remember they'd give me the bladder, and I would take a cane and insert that in the bladder and blow it up and tie it off and make a balloon out of it.
Yeah.
And of course, now you could go to any bank that would give you a balloon for nothing, for an advertising thing, or you could buy a balloon, I suppose, for a nickel at the dime store, as we called it. But then you just didn't have those dimes and nickels, did you?
That's true.
So we made them. And hickory bark whistles. And,
Oh, yeah, Tom and John used to always be doing things like that.
yeah. And we'd plat whips out of hickory bark in the spring when they. Did you ever have to sucker tobacco?
I did do it whether I had to or not.
Yeah. Well, do you remember the hornworms and how big they got? And
Yes, I do.
they'd cluck at you, sort of, you know. Big, they'd spit on you and make kind of a funny
Enough to
noise.
scare you, all right.
Yeah. My wife was always afraid of those worms, and she'd knock them off with a stick and then kill them on the ground instead of just tearing them
Now,
apart.
wasn't her name Zila?
That is my mother. Hmm. Yes, my mother.
Yeah.
Of course, my wife now is Janie. They sometimes call her Mama Mo at school, but she teaches at Marshall County High School. I think maybe she's had your granddaughter in school.
I'm sure she has. Diane Perry,
Mm-hmm.
Margaret's girl.
Yeah. All right, do you remember anything about Hardin, what Hardin was like when you came here? What the stores were, or some of the business
Oh,
people?
yes. And I was it.
Yeah.
I was the postmaster for a while, you know.
Oh, yes, you were postmaster. I certainly remember that, Miss Genella.
That's the reason I said I was it for a while.
Mm-hmm. Well, now I've heard that someone told me that there once was a newspaper in Hardin.
There was.
You remember anything about it at all?
Well, yes, I used to have a lot to do with it, I'm sure, but I can't recall just exactly how now.
There was a Star and an Enterprise, someone said, and Leona Starks was the editor.
Yes.
Okay,
And I was the postmaster for a good while.
yeah. And there was a dime store here, I'm told,
Yes, I know it. I had something to do with that, too.
and a movie theater, and of course there was a livery stable.
Yes.
And they said the drummers used to come in on the train and they'd get off and stay all night at Warren's Hotel.
That's right.
and rent a horse at the livery stable and drive out to the little stores in Olive and Hyco and around and sell merchandise.
Yes, I remember all of that stuff.
That's kind of like Hertz and rent a car, except it was rent a horse and buggy.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. All right, what was Benton like then?
Well, Benton and Hardin were pretty much alike. It wasn't too far ahead of us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. They both had largely big general merchandise stores.
That's right.
Those stores were pretty fancy for those days. I can remember, Lillian Kello having a millinery shop at Davenport Brothers.
Oh, so can I. Yes, indeed.
And they had an elevator. You could go upstairs. Boy, I thought that was...
And I remember seeing Ray Mofield pass our house a walking. When he lived up that ways, Bernie come right by our house coming down of a morning to get
Going to school.
Going to school to get the general get together.
Yeah. Well, that's right. That's the only way we had to go then, was to walk.
It was an enjoyable time, though.
It certainly was. I enjoyed every minute of it. Do you remember your first train ride?
Seems like I do, but I'm not exactly sure just where it was and when.
What about the car? When did you first have a car? Do you remember that?
I've been around a good while before I did.
Automobiles made it a little more flexible for us to get where we wanted to go.
Oh, yeah.
And then finally, we didn't have much entertainment at home till we got a radio, I suppose. Do you remember that?
Yes. Oh, I remember all these things that we got later on.
Yeah. Do you know anything about, let's say, medical remedies that they had when you were... Did your mother ever hang a bag of asafoetida around your neck?
I think she must have, because I've heard of that all my life.
Yeah. Well, do you have anything else in particular, Miss Genella, you'd like to say before we close off our tape for today? You want to say something about how...
I say you had sweet parents.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
I loved them both and enjoyed them very much. And my husband thought Kelty was it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fine. Well, we certainly thank you, Miss Genella, for the things you've told us. I appreciate coming into your home. This is Ray Mofield speaking, and we've produced a tape today in the State Library series, one to go to Frankfort, one for the Regional Library at Murray State, and one paid for by WCBL in Benton for the Marshall County Library System with branches in Benton, Hardin, and Calvert City. And that completes our broadcast for today.
Well, I appreciate having